Hi, everybody. I'm Leah. I am the parent partner coordinator in the NICU, and I'm here today with Lori, who is the physiotherapist in NICU and in the perinatal follow-up program. And she has an interesting topic to talk to us today, a big word that you may not have heard before. I certainly didn't before NICU. It is plagiocephaly. So Lori, thank you for joining us. What is plagiocephaly?
Oh, thanks, Leah. I'm really happy to be here. Plagiocephaly is just a really fancy word for head flattening. So a flat spot on a baby's head somewhere. Usually in the NICU, particularly, what we see is a baby who gets a flat spot, usually on the right side, but it can be on the left side. It can be on the back even, so that there's some asymmetry. It's one of the things that I really look for when I go to see a baby in the NICU. And it's important because I think of head shape as telling a story. So it tells a story about a baby's journey so far. It's a really quick and easy way to look and see, do they have a head turning preference? That's the big thing. Are they interested in all parts of their world? And so when babies are very small, of course, they can't look side to side, right? They don't have the muscular power yet. Their gravity is really heavy, so it really affects how they're able to move. So it really falls on all of us, so families and staff, to really be aware of that and make sure that there's lots of opportunities for different positions and for encouraging babies to attend to kind of all parts of their world instead of just one side. Because what we know, sorry.
Yeah, no.
What we know from the research and all the things we've learned over the last, particularly 30 years, but there's lots of information always coming out. There's so much research in this area now. What we know is that head shape is not just about the shape of a baby's head, right? Head shape is about the ability of a little one to really look at, hear, focus, experience the world from all different parts, all different directions. This is important because a baby's brain, when they're very little, develops so fast. There are so many connections happening every second, and it really affects how their brain is wiring, right? For movement down the road, for being able to process all of the things that are happening in their world. So it's really not just about head shape. It is about how little brains develop, right? And from the very beginning, and as they're getting ready to go home, and then even beyond. So it's a pretty big deal.
Now, I know that this is my limited knowledge, so you can correct me and teach me here, but when a child has a flat spot on their head, you can correct that for a certain window of time. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So we know that a baby, when babies are born, their heads are softer. And we have our head bones are just one bone, but when you're born, you have a number of bones that move, and it's important because you need to fit through the birth canal, and also because brains get so much bigger. Like in the first year and two of life, there's so much brain volume and growth that happens. So I have my baby, right? So you can see that there are head plates, right? There's two head plates in the front, right? There's two big ones along the side. Then there's a couple of small ones down by the ears. And then in the back, there's also this kind of triangular spot. So if you look, right, here's the baby's soft spot. We call it, or the anterior fontanelle. Okay. So the reason why those are there is so that the brain can get so much bigger, right, as babies grow. So nearing the first year of life, as you get closer to about a year of age, those get harder, and the sutures start to close. And so there's not as much opportunity for fixing head shape at that point. So we really try to, the earlier the better. I mean, if we notice head shape difference in the NICU, that's the time to really get on top of it. And we're doing a lot of education right now, actually, in the NICU and over the last couple of years, to really start to think about earlier referrals, and really identifying things much earlier. So we do a lot of education with the nurses around how to identify head flattening, and when you identify it, then to do something about it.
And
Yeah,
so what can families and staff do about it?
so we came up with an acronym called Head Shapes Matter. And so SHAPES is the acronym. So we looked at whenever babies are on their back, in wherever they are, whenever they're on their back, that we really encouraging using positioners to keep the belly button and the nose lined up so that the head's in the middle. Because when a full-term baby is born, they have the ability to do that already, right? But our preterm babies don't, because they usually lack that really nice flexor tone. And so we really encourage that gets some pressure through the very back of the head, right?
So that would be like the beanbag things, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have any here to show you, but if you're in the NICU and you see those bean bags, they have two long arms. Often we use those for position. We have Zaki hands, which are the bean-filled hands. They look a little creepy, but they work really great. Those are wonderful too. We also have these gel pads that go under babies' heads just to kind of cushion the surface a little bit more. So we have lots of things that we use for that. And when babies are really small, they do need a lot more support than babies as they get older. So sometimes you can take some of that support away as they get some of that midline control and the ability to hold their head in the middle, because you want to give them the opportunity to use that when they start to develop it. So that was one of the things that we did. The other thing was changing the head of the bed. It's such a simple thing. So we even tell families when they go home from the NICU, one way, when you go home, of course, it's back to sleep. Babies are on their back, nothing in the crib or the bassinet with them. But the one thing that you can do is change up the orientation. So change the head of the bed that your baby is sleeping at, because they'll always want to look towards you or where you're going to come from, because that's where the action is, right? And that's where all the warm and fuzzies are. And so they'll look that way. So if you just change the head of the bed, it's easy. It gets them looking side to side. So in the NICU, we do that once a week. Every Sunday, the clinical lead sends out a little message: don't forget to change the head of the bed. So for every baby that's able to have the head of the bed changed, we do it. Some babies can't always have the head of the bed changed if they're, on some ventilation that doesn't really give us the option, but as soon as we can, that's what we do. So that would be the H part of our shapes. And then the next A is assessing head shape with every single nursing shift. So nurses will assess head shape as part of their exam, and then note if there's head flattening that occurs. And then the P in shapes is position changes with every care time. So whatever that means, whatever that looks like for that particular baby, because some babies have care times that stretch longer as they get older, some are shorter. But whenever something happens, you have a diaper change, or they're fed, or they're out for skin to skin, when they go back into their sleeping space, that we change the position they were in. So I think of it as a rotisserie chicken, right? So it's the best position is the next position, right? So they're on their back, and then they're on their left side, maybe then they're on their tummy, and then they're on the right side. And that we shouldn't replicate the same position within, an 8-hour period. Because when we did our re-audit, and after we did our little education session, we noticed that the incidence of plagiocephaly really decreased, to 43%. That's a big deal.
Wow.
From 77 to 43. So, but one of the things we did notice is that still the most common position that babies are in is on their back. And then the E in shapes, it's early detection and referral to physio. And actually the referral to physio that has increased significantly since we started this program, which is great. And then the last S, of course, is really encouraging skin to skin care early and often. If a baby was in skin to skin care for 24 hours a day, we wouldn't need to have this conversation.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. It wouldn't be
because they'd be on their belly?
because the position that they're in gets them in some nice flexion already. Parents are in control of where baby's looking. They're getting their hands up and tucked into their face, right? And then if you think about all of the other wonderful sensory experiences that are happening in skin to skin care, it really trumps everything else. Yeah.
Wow.
And we started using a program called the Sense program a number of years ago now. And that stands for Supporting and Enhancing NICU Sensory Experiences. And it's heavily based on all of the evidence that we have around how a baby's sensory system develops. We start using it in our NICU. You know, we can start using it at 23 weeks of gestational age, and it goes all the way up to 40 plus. And it just looks at all of the parts of sensory development and how we can support a baby who is in the NICU to optimize that development, because it's all tied in together, right? Movement, the sensory system are all tied in together, and that all impacts head shape and brain development. So you can't really tease out one from the other. So we use the Sense program. And I say, when I'm telling families about that, you know, if you're doing skin to skin care, again, if you did that for 24 hours a day, we wouldn't need a Sense program because you're giving all of those sensory experiences just by holding your baby. Yeah.
And is there anything that you want to add that I haven't asked you about that's important for families to know?
I think as you're getting ready to go home, thinking about discharge, and your baby, you know, maybe is on less oxygen, is doing better with feeds. Now is the time to get really excited. And it's a great time to request to ask to physio if you haven't already had a chance to meet with me. You know, sometimes I can get really busy and I don't connect with all of the people I'd love to connect with. But if you feel like it would be helpful, just ask your nurse and they can get in touch with me.
Well, this was really interesting. And I know that it was something that was part of our journey, and getting Tessa on her belly and doing the reaching for things. And we used to play all these kind of games that we learned at perinatal follow-up and in NICU. And so I think it's something that parents care about because of the look of their child's head, but then as well, it's good to know that it's that brain development too, and part of their sensory experience. And so it's really something that we can all, families and staff, contribute to just baby living their best life, really.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the whole family. Right? Yeah. It's really important. Yeah, I'm glad to have a chance to chat about this today. I mean, I could talk about this for years. So if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'd also love to hear if there are other things around, you know, development and that kind of stuff that people would be interested in talking about, because I love to talk about it.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good shout out to our families, that if you're watching this and you have some questions for Lori that she can answer in another video, then please send me an email and we will make that happen.
Yeah, thank you, Leah.
All right, thank you for joining me.
Okay, bye.
Bye.